Okay, so welcome to episode 3 of the eyecare.education podcast. We've got two very special guests this week. We have Jayshree Vasarni, who is a dispensing optician and CET provider and Abdo practical examiner. And we also have Dan Williams, who is the owner of Visualize Training and Consultancy. Dan has been on a mission to raise the awareness of low vision and to offer support to a lot of people within the community, and just to raise the profile of low vision among optics as well. So it's great to have them both on. So welcome to the eyecare.education podcast, Jayshree and Dan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So to start off, first of all, then we'll find out a bit more about yourselves. So if we start with you, Jayshree. So could you tell us, how did you get into optics and what got you to the point where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I started in optics because basically one of my aunties was an optometrist actually, not an optician.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time I was really keen on becoming a pharmacist because my brother was a pharmacist. And I went to an open day at the university, and it was a really warm day, and I went into the chemistry lab, and I nearly fainted with all the smells. So I just thought, oh no, this is not for me. And on a day after that, we went to Manchester University and went into the optometry side of things, and I thought, this is cool. I like this, all this different type of kit, and I just thought it was more what I wanted to do. So I applied for everything in optics right the way through, from optometry right the way through to orthoptist, and decided in the end to go for dispensing optician really. And at that time, jobs were plentiful, but I qualified in 1989 where we had deregulation, so it was a case of, right, what do you do now? And they said, oh, can you drive? And I said, not yet. And they said, if you pass your test, then you can become a contact lens trainee.
Okay.
So I passed my test and therefore got my contact lens qualification as well. And then from there, we've just sort of moved on, and I worked for the Institute of Optometry, which was a great sort of place to work, research, charity, and looking after patients, with additional needs, if you like. And that in itself was a good ground base, if you like, from where we were, previously working in practice.
Yeah.
The examining abdo examining and abdo practice visits has been something that I've done for a long time, and I thoroughly enjoy it. You get to meet so many different people across the sector, independents, multiples, academia, all of that side of things. And in fact, the learning happens not only when you're doing the exams, but also afterwards, when you're listening to people afterwards, right? When you're talking to people afterwards and listening to what's going on in their lives and what's happening, in their world, if you like. So that's a good sort of way to think about it. I think you similarly are, doing that, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I've literally just been signed off. So I got signed off during the last winter exams. But yeah, I mean, I started a couple of years ago in my training, but I found it really, really interesting and beneficial to me as a professional as well, because it forced me to go over stuff that I'd perhaps forgotten or I'd not reviewed as much in practice. So yeah, it's a really good. I'd definitely recommend anyone out there to have a go at it, because it's definitely beneficial.
Yeah. And then part also what I do is I'm a session optician at the RNIB, and that is basically the clinics there. We look after people. We have clinics for people with learning disabilities, and it's a case of and learning difficulties as well. And obviously the people with sight impairment that work at the RNIB. So again, that stretches the old mental elastic. You get a patient who has different challenges or different requests, if you like, and you have to think slightly outside the box. So that keeps me a bit more engaged in terms of what I'm doing. And from that, I went to a show called Sight Village. A Sight Village is a tech show, actually, for all the new type of tech that's available for people with visual impairment. And anybody can go to that. And there I met Dan. And Dan, was there, and he does visual impairment training. And I went onto the workshop there, and afterwards I just sort of thought to myself on the way home, I thought, well, actually, why are we not signposting patients to the services that need to be serviced, sent to? Why is this not happening? And I got in touch with Dan and said, really, you need to try and get this training CET accredited, because only then will you get engagement from the optometry sector. Low vision isn't classed as a very sort of cool subject. There are people who love it and have a passion for it, but generally, when we actually do the road shows that we do, if you ask people how many people are here for the CET points, 80 hands will go up. And how many people are here for the low vision? 5, 6 initially. So, people are truthful.
Yeah. I tend to find that, as a CET topic, because we always make sure that we include a low vision workshop as part of our roadshows. We always tend to find that low vision as a topic it's a great topic to discuss because there's so many layers to it. So from a pathology point of view, there's a lot of interest in pathology. So, there's a lot to learn from that aspect, but there's also a lot to learn from the dispensing side with low vision aids, and as well as understanding how it actually affects the patient. So obviously we'll touch on that a bit more with Dan in a moment as well. But learning about how it actually affects a patient's life and discussing that kind of thing, I think that side of it gets people a bit more involved as well.
Yeah, and that's what the roadshow has been hopefully engaging with.
Yeah.
To try and actually say that this is a day-to-day reality for people. This is not something that you just try. You try on the sim specs in that situation, and it's not easy and comfortable to look at the tube map, but actually this is the reality for people.
Yeah.
And that's really what hit home to me, and that's why I decided that this was something I really want to pursue and do, and so that's what we've been doing really.
Yeah, definitely, and it's been a great success as well, hasn't it? You've managed to reach a huge portion of the industry already. But there's a lot more out there, isn't there? Really, there's a lot more people.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more out there. Yeah. And the other thing is also to engage the sight loss charities who maybe have been trying to engage with optometrists and opticians, dispensing opticians, but the difficulty is that they don't know how to do that. They don't know the vehicle. They don't know how to do it. So again, we've done some work with that. We've done a video where people can look at that, opticians, optometrists, anybody in the eye care sector, of how they can engage better with the charities, with the sight loss charities.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a big part of the support network, isn't it? And I think we can often overlook that in practice, where we, if a low vision condition is detected, it's normally referred on to an ophthalmologist, etc., or referred on. But having those people come back in practice and being able to provide a support network, information about benefits and in-work benefits and all that kind of stuff, as well as low vision aids, is a bigger part of supporting a low vision patient as magnifiers and advice about lighting, etc.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Stuart, that what we don't realise is that low vision patients are sitting right in front of us in our practices.
Yeah.
They could be people we're working with, they could be people of our family or our friends who we've not really recognised or seen as low vision patients. And really, they do things in certain ways, but you don't know why they do things in certain ways, and that's because they have a vision impairment which they may not have really wanted to tell you about. But if you look again freshly at how they do things, then you think, oh, that's why. This is the reason. And if you're bold enough to ask them and say, is this the reason? They'll say yes. So it actually comes home, if you like, in that sense that you can actually put it in your own practice. People working with you may think, oh, this is the way they do it. There is a reason for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the biggest conditions that we come across in practice is AMD. It's the most common low vision condition, but it's something that we do see a lot in practice, and it's probably something that people don't realise that they can provide a lot more support that they're able to, because they don't sell low vision aids. There's still a lot of advice and a lot of support they can give to that patient. But like I say, I think a lot of people don't, in their minds, they're not actively low vision practitioners. They're not actively providing low vision service in practice because they're not selling low vision aids, specific aids. But there's so much advice and there's so many things you can give to patients to help them that do make a big difference. So it's a lot more.
I think the non-optical stuff, Stuart, is the important thing. The non-optical, the holistic stuff, the information is the key stuff. And as a dispensing optician, that's what we do. We communicate with people on a daily basis. So why wouldn't we do that? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, we've done a few different low vision workshops where we've focused on non-optical low vision aids. And some of the suggestions that we get are fantastic. And some of they're almost like life hacks, aren't they? Some of the little hints and tips that you can give to people just to make certain tasks easier. And one of the best ones we had was someone had a low vision relative. I think they had AMD, but they didn't want to go out to family meals because they struggled to see the food on their plate, they were always reluctant to go out to a family meal because they felt that they'd be holding everyone up, they'd be the last to finish their food, and everyone would be waiting for them before they could order the next course, etc. So that sort of kept them from interacting with their family and stuff like that. So what they did was they used to just take their own, like a different coloured plate to the restaurant, and ask the restaurant to serve it on a plate that had better contrast for that patient. And it enabled that patient to enjoy family meals, to go out and interact and take away that whole isolation aspect of low vision as well, which was fantastic. But like you say, you think of magnifiers and electronic low vision aids and all these different things which are fantastic, and they can make a real difference to patients' lives. But something as simple as a different coloured plate, a different coloured chopping board, all sorts of things like that. Another one we had, which was really interesting, was a low vision patient who had different shaped buttons sewn into different outfits.
The bump-ons, yes.
Yeah, into his clothes. So he'd have like different shaped buttons sewed into his clothes. So he could feel through his wardrobe, and he knew that shaped button shirt went with that shaped button trousers.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's
exactly.
So
simple things like bump-ons and that sort of thing can make a massive difference. It can keep somebody safe when they're cooking, for example.
Definitely.
Because you can put a little bump on of when the cooker's on, when the cooker's off.
Yeah.
And it means that people are living independently and as they want to live. So that's the important thing. It's empowering people.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the key thing.
Definitely. I think the biggest...
something that Dan does quite nicely, actually.
Yeah, definitely. So let's have a little chat with Dan then. So, do you want to tell us about your journey then, Dan? How did you sort of start out in optics, and at what point did you want to have get into CET and stuff like that and make a difference in low vision? You just need to unmute your microphone, Dan. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, so I basically got into. I think I'll start at the beginning really. So I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa at the age of 8, which retinitis pigmentosa is basically a gradual loss of vision, starting at the periphery and moving its way in. And I went to a mainstream school and did all my qualifications, etc. And it didn't really become a reality to me. I just thought that when I was 8 years old, I just had to wear some glasses and sit in the front of the class and everything would be fine. I didn't really understand really much about the condition. My mum didn't really understand much about the condition either, because no one had really told us and explained it to us about the severity of what it is really. And I think that we'd had appointments with optometrists or ophthalmists, ophthalmologists, dispensing opticians, and I really didn't understand what I had until it became a reality for me at the age of 16, when I was starting to apply, thinking about transitioning from school to college and what do I want to do for a career. And my career that I wanted to go into was to be a police officer, and then it became a reality to me that actually you can't be a police officer if you've not got 20/20 vision. And no one really had told me anything like this until I'd researched it and all this type of stuff. So when I realized that wasn't going to be for me, and I had a condition that was progressive and I was going to go blind eventually, and I started to research it all myself and understand the condition and the pathology and all of this type of stuff, that's when it really became a reality for me that my life wasn't going to be the same as everybody else. And at that time when everyone's leaving school, they're looking at getting mopeds, they're looking at driving, they're looking at careers. I sort of thought to myself, what am I going to do next? Because I didn't really know what to do as a blind person. I didn't think that I could get a job as a blind person, because I never met any other blind people, and I thought I was the only one in the world that was blind. So I with that, I got very, very down and depressed, and sort of didn't know what to do or where to go next for help and support. No one had ever really told me about anything in terms of support services. And I went and I got to the point where I just, turned to alcohol, drugs, and tried to commit suicide, basically, because I felt so emotional and sort of thought, well, who would want to employ a blind person, marry a blind person, and how can a blind person live in this world that is surrounded by people that can see? Bearing in mind that I felt I was the only one in the world that couldn't see, because no one else, I'd never met any other blind people before, and all the people that I knew was people like Stevie Wonder on TV, you know?
Yeah, wow. I think was, I mean, like I say, at that stage in your life, that is the stage where you're most optimistic, isn't it? That kind of leaving school, you know, you're planning your future, you're planning what you want to do. So to have that kind of reality hit home at that age must have been really awful, really.
Yeah, it was really awful, and I think so. So from there, I've had some counselling. I didn't really find the counselling work because I felt that they didn't really understand what was going on. And then someone told me about this college in Hereford, which was called the Royal National College for the Blind. And I think without that college, I don't think I would be here today, because that college changed my life. It allowed me to I went there, first of all, for an open day, and I seen loads of blind people with dogs and canes, and I was like, oh my God, this is the world that could be me and my life. And then I spoke to people, and I realized that, you know, there were blind people out there that were barristers, lawyers, business people, all studying different things to go on to different things, personal trainers, massage therapists, etc. And it opened up my world to speaking to other people, to realize that there's so much you can do. You just have to do things in a different way just because you can't see. And I sort of thought, wow, this is amazing, you know, and I think initially I sort of was quite scared and reluctant. Once I engaged and realized that people can do things just because they can't see, you know, just because they don't have sight, they can still have vision. And I think they're two different things in my mind. And I think that having a visual impairment has allowed me to be very resilient, very much more determined, overcoming adversity and turning that negative into a positive. And I don't think I'd have it any other way now, because it's made me who I am. And it's also made me, you know, I can get paid effectively to talk to people about my blindness, which is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So it's amazing how you have sort of taken all the positives out of it. I mean, when you initially went to that college, did you have anything in mind that you wanted to do in terms of a career or anything? Or was it just a case of going and seeing what was available and what was actually possible?
No, I think I just sort of went in there. I knew that I was quite entrepreneurial. I knew that business was something I was interested in. I wanted to I knew that social work was also interesting to me. I wanted to help other people. And sort of when I studied business studies, health and social care, and sociology. And so that was sort of where I was going to go. And then being at the college for 2 years and being with other people who had visual impairment, I just realized that there was a huge lack of awareness around the general public. So I would take friends out that had, you know, were sort of blinder than me, as it were, at the time. And I would guide them and take them out. And I realized that people started talking to me and rather than them. And it was like, you know, talking through me to them and all this type of stuff in supermarkets. And when we'd go out to pubs and stuff, people would interact with me rather than them, because they would see that they were sort of more blinder and whatever it was. And I sort of thought, why is this? You know, there's a whole lack of education. People are scared. They don't know what to do. They think they're going to offend. So they don't interact and all this type of stuff. And with that, I just felt like I need to educate the world and change the world perception. So I then went on to university and studied rehabilitation with people with visual impairment, to know teaching people how to use a white cane, teaching people how to be independent in the home, all of this type of stuff, so that people, and that sort of give me the qualification as a rehabilitation assistant, which I did for a year. And I realized that then it became a reality for me when I did a work placement in social services, that I didn't really want to work for social services. I wanted to be more working with the wider world to make them more aware of visual impairment, so that blind people, when they're out and about, just get a good service, really, and people understand, and people don't start talking to the person and they talk to the individual. And so I then sort of took steps to, first of all, my mum was a single parent. She brought me up and she was a hairdresser and she wanted to set up a business. And I said, well, why can't you? And she had the perception that you had to be wealthy to set up a business. And I said, no, you don't have to be wealthy, Mum. Let's just do it, you know. So I found some money and I got some grants, and I set her up as in a hairdressing salon in Bath, where I was from originally. Yeah.
Wow, excellent. So what made you take that step into optics?
Yeah, so then what I did then is I sort of, so I ran my own business now for 6 years, delivering a visual impairment awareness training to organisations, teach people how to guide, how to communicate effectively with blind people, that type of stuff, and making sure the customer experience is a lot more satisfactory with people that can't see very well. I also do sort of workplace assessment. So if someone's struggling in the workplace, I do workplace assessments to make sure that they get the right equipment and the right support in the workplace, and that type of thing. And what got me into optics really was Jayshree and Peter Black, where Jayshree come along to one of the training sessions, and she sort of went away and said, you know, opticians should know all this type of stuff, and why don't we know this? And let's get it accredited and let's get moving with this. So that's sort of how it happened. Really, it happened by accident, but it's been really, really useful. And I suppose I sort of assumed, as many people do, that a person that deals with eyes should know all this already. So I didn't think that I didn't really realise there was a knowledge gap until I had come into the world of optics and CET to realise that a lot of people don't know about the local sight loss charity. They've never been there. They've never referred to the local charity. They've never referred to social services. I think that optometrists, dispensing opticians, you know, ophthalmologists, very good at referring into ophthalmology and looking at pathology, but actually there's a clear lack of awareness and understanding of where do you send someone that can't see very well, that needs help and support, not just with their eye care, but with their mental health, with their social aspects of life. Because once they're diagnosed with a condition, it's all well and good to say, oh, you've got glaucoma, but that doesn't really help the patient, you know? It doesn't really help the patient to know what their pathology is. It helps the patient to know, how do I get a job? How do I live in this world that is designed for people that can see? How do I get out and about without tripping? You know, how do I do all of this stuff that life is for? And I think, so for me, it became a reality check that actually we need to empower the whole profession. We managed to be successful in securing some funding from Thomas Pocklington Trust, who managed to give us the money to do a roadshow to train over 5,000 optoms and DOs about visual impairment on the See and Beyond the Eyes roadshow, and upskill people. And then unfortunately that money sort of come to an end. But you know, we still would like to train every single professional to make them realise. And I think the other thing is that a lot of the professionals have never ever had a patient talk to them. I think professionals are very good at dictating to patients, but they're not necessarily that good at listening to patients dictate to them. And I think that's where it's been a very game-changing moment, you know, in what we've achieved, is that when I speak to professionals, they've never had a patient talk to them. And I think there's a lot of flaws in the system, in the way that the training is done. And I think that low vision is not seen as a sexy subject. And I think it needs to be more so, especially as we have an Asian population and more people, you know, losing their vision. And I think that there needs to be a lot more done around this, and it needs to be taken a lot more seriously, and it needs to be part of the core learning within universities as well. You know, I think that universities could do a lot more around this subject, so that people do come out knowing all of these things. So they do link in with the local services, they do visit them, and they do build those connections, because ultimately there's going to be a lot more blind people coming through your doors.
Yeah, definitely. I think like say when we mentioned with Jayshree previously, that in terms of learning about low vision, from an optom perspective, they learn pathology, they learn about understanding the signs and the symptoms and the diagnosis of it. And from a dispensing optician's point of view, we learn about low vision aids, the different functions of low vision aids and stuff like that. But again, it is that whole support side of it that we're all lacking, really. One of the things we've tried to do with our low vision workshops is to broach the subject of mental health for low vision patients, and obviously listening to your own personal experiences as well just sort of brings home that point as well. So, I mean, obviously you suffered with mental health issues yourself as you were finding out that how it was going to affect your life. So what kind of emotions do people go through during that period? What is the biggest sort of fear? Is there any kind of Yeah, anything?
Yeah, I think there's definitely it's like when you lose somebody, you're effectively losing your sight. So it's like you're losing somebody. So everybody's gone through a bereavement in their life. So they go through grief, they go through loss. But how I always describe it is you can't get to acceptance unless you've had the correct support to get to that next level. So whether you need counselling, you need to talk to other people that have gone through a similar experience, just to find that acceptance. And I think that's where the link is not necessarily linking up, because people can't get to acceptance if they've never met the local charity or the national charity, or they've never met someone with sight loss to have actually share their experiences, and they don't feel like they're the only one in the world that has sight loss. I think there's a massive thing around peer support and realizing you're not the only one out there that has this, and other people, and like you said about life hacks, learning from other people about their life hacks. I think that's really important. That's what I learned at the college, that lots of different life hacks of what you can do to just make your life so much easier. The amount of technology that's out there, how an iPhone can talk to you, how you can magnify on an iPhone, that you wouldn't necessarily know unless you're linked up with services to just because you become blind, you don't all of a sudden become an expert in blindness. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the other thing that we found on the roadshow is a couple of different things. One thing is that we are into apps. We do promote apps and technology. The amount of new tech that's out there to help people with vision impairment is amazing.
Yeah,
and it's increasing. But as eye care professionals, we need to be able to help that happen, to help that grow, and look into what's available, and not be scared because we don't have the knowledge, because people are willing to help us with that side of things. The other thing is that people do think that low vision is to do with old people, okay, and that's not the case. There's a huge wealth of working age people who with impairments who are out there, but we're not recognising them. We're not employing them. We're not looking after them, and that's something that needs thinking about, because people that have a vision impairment might think they're going to lose their job, okay, and if they don't get the support, that will be the situation, and that's not acceptable, really.
No, definitely.
So part of the piece is also talking about the government grants and access to work, and empowering your patients and saying, no, actually there is help out there. You have to talk to your employer in the right way and say that actually this is to do with the Disability Act, and this is something that needs acting on, and it's having that knowledge and making sure that you can have empathy for that person and recognising that that's important. In terms of the counselling, RNIB and Macular Society both have counselling services, so it's important that we know that those counselling services are there and we catch people early. The important thing is to signpost people as you do the referral for the ophthalmologist. Why would you not do the referral to the sight loss charity, to the eye clinic liaison officer, to these people? Because that's the important thing, that they get the support as early as possible. And also with the roadshow, it's multidisciplinary learning. We've had eye clinic liaison officers, rehabilitation officers, people from social services. We've had GP come, we had a pharmacist come, ophthalmologists, ophthalmic nurses, diabetic screeners. So it's about multidisciplinary learning, because as Dan says, that the hacks can come from anywhere and anybody, and that's the important learning that we need to share.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think the other thing to add to that is that people, they may present with early onset glaucoma, or early onset AMD, or early onset RP, or whatever the condition may be, and people are not necessarily flagging them up until their VAs become really, really bad. Actually, it's not good. It's better to do it when at the end of the day, if they can't no longer drive anymore, they are effectively a low vision patient. I think it's about looking outside the box. Yeah. If you're telling someone they can no longer drive, that's going to have a massive emotional impact on their mental health. That affects their day-to-day activity, and it makes them, they're going to struggle, right? So if they've got glaucoma and it's not, the professional sees it as, it's not really that bad at the moment, that's your perception that it's not that bad at the moment. But for the patient, they're really, really struggling right now, because they've gone from having vision to not having some level of vision. And I think we need to don't get too hung up on the visual acuity and the field of vision. At the end of the day, that person just got diagnosed with an eye condition. Regardless of what level they can see at, they struggle in some way, shape or form. And I think that's the bit that's also missed. It seems that people are not necessarily referred to any service or low vision service or anything until their vision seems to get to a point where it's perceived that it's bad. But it's about not putting your perception on the patient and looking at it from the patient perspective and seeing they do struggle. Ask them questions, Are you struggling to read your letters? Are you when you're out and about, do you trip and fall? How are you in yourself with your mental health situation? If you don't ask, then you're never going to know. But we can't assume that patients are just fine. And also recognize that not every patient is going to tell you that they have mental health issues, but you'll also see red flags, because some patients will tell you, oh, no, I'm really, really fine. But you need to delve into that more. Why, maybe they're not fine, but they're telling you they're fine. And it's about exploring that in more ways than one, I think.
Yeah, I think hopefully these days people are a bit more open about mental health, aren't they? There's certainly a lot more awareness. And I think people are more likely to discuss their own sort of feelings a little bit more than they were even 5-10 years ago. But yeah, in terms of a diagnosis of a low vision condition, I think Dan, like you said, it's not necessarily about their VAs; it's about how it's affecting their lives. And I think from a practitioner point of view, for someone to be considered or to be classified as low vision, it's more about they have to not be able to see this. They have to hit that certain VA point for that to be classified. But like say in the early stages of a condition, they're still going to be going through that process and still going to have those worries and those fears about how their vision and how their condition is going to progress, really. So do you think with regards to sort of diagnosis and having that conversation with patients, do you think it comes from a point where it's always, I mean, with a lot of referrals, for instance, it's not always the responsibility of the practitioner or the optometrist or the dispensing optician, predominantly the optometrist, to actually diagnose a condition. It's more they recognise signs of it, recognise symptoms of it, and refer accordingly. But it's not their position to actually say, you've got this condition.
Yeah.
So do you think that kind
True, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't refer somebody on to the services generally. If you know that person is struggling, you can just say, yes, you've got an appointment to see the ophthalmologist, but it might be useful to just take a look at these different websites to see, if there's anything there that can help you.
Yeah.
And also we're talking about, again, we're not, yes, you might suspect they have glaucoma or suspect they have AMD and refer them on. That's fine. But at this current time, that they've lost sight. They have sight loss. Whatever condition they have lost some type of sight. Therefore, the local sight loss charity can help you, right? So it doesn't matter about their condition right now. It matters that they've lost some sight. The ophthalmologist can help diagnose, that's fine. But to move on with your life, the charity can help you because you've lost some sight, yeah? That's how we have to see it, really.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of the process that you follow when you get in touch with these charities and these support groups, from your own perspective, Dan, is it quite a straightforward process? Is it quite efficient and do things move quite quickly in terms of the support that you get?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. So, obviously every local area will have a local sight loss or blind association or charity that, practitioners should make themselves aware of. Then you also have the national charities like RNIB. You then have the Blind Children's Association. You then have, your eye condition specific charities like Retina UK and Macular Society, Nystagmus Network. All of these type of charities that are crying out. They're crying out for referrals. They want people to refer in, and they're there ready and waiting for those patients. I've recently just become a trustee for the Nystagmus Network. So, we only have 500 members. And we know that 1 in 1,000 people have nystagmus. So we need you guys to refer your nystagmus patients to us.
Yeah.
That means that if there's 1 in 1,000 people that have nystagmus, why have we only got 500 members? That means they're all sat there, probably sat in front of you guys.
Yeah.
And we need them. Yeah. So it's really important that the patients are referred into the charities. And also, the more people that refer into charities, the more referrals they have and we have, the more we can then get more funding, the more that we can then put more business cases together to say that we need more help and support, and also for statistics, as well, which is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one thing that we tend to probably overlook in practice is the fact that you guys need these people coming to you so you can get better funding, you can have more of an influence when it comes to to recommending policy and changes in the workplace, changes to things like the Disability Act. All those kind of things need evidence, don't they? And
exactly. And we as in my sort of where I wear my trustee hat, the Nystagmus Network, we constantly hear from people with nystagmus saying that they regularly go to their optometrist or their dispensing optician to get a pair of specs. But they've never been told about services. And it's seen because they've got, again, back to the visual acuity, because they have such generally, people with nystagmus have quite good acuity, they're not then picked up as low vision. But, when they're stressed, when they're anxious, when they're tired, it's a variable condition. They still have some level of sight loss. Most of them cannot drive. So therefore they need help and support. They need personal independence payments so that they can get a taxi to go to the supermarket. They need a disabled rail card so that they can get discounts on their rail travel. All of these things that people are struggling with, And we know that about 43% of people with visual impairment have mental health issues. And I just think that it's really, really important to encourage the whole profession to refer, and also to encourage the whole profession to do a lot more around visual impairment and sight loss. I mean, all the practices that are out there as well, like charity of the year. You've got a sight loss charity of the year. Why could you not, to raise money for your local sight loss charity? The other thing is get optometrists or dispensing opticians to go to their local charity and talk to their members, talk about eye health and eye conditions, and then naturally those patients will probably come to your practice. So it also makes business sense as well, and those patients will bring their family back and their friends and everything.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, Stuart, there's a big piece missing really about sight loss charities and the optical profession working together. And, really the important thing is that sometimes a lot of us will have the money box in our practice, right? We've got the money box and we put, people do a repair and then we do the repair for them and they'll put the money in the box and, that's great, you're supposed to. But actually, they don't know what the charity does. What does the charity offer? Okay, they don't know where the charity is. They don't know if there's a car park nearby. They don't know if it's easily, easily accessible or signposted. And if you don't know what the charity does, then really you're missing a trick. The important thing is to know what the local sight loss charity does. See how you can help them. Share their events and support them. And because that will make a massive difference to them and you overall. The links. They have rooms which you could hire for the LOC meetings or other meetings that you might have. It's about working in a collaborative fashion, okay? And overall, it will make a difference to your practice and to the community, because at the end of the day, that's where your patients are. They're in the community.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So the link has to be done, and in this current situation, it's difficult enough, but. I think you have to think a bit wider and look at a bit broader picture of what's going on. Sight loss charities at the moment are under huge pressure. The normal stuff that they were doing, which is the sponsored walk and the tea and the coffee, that's all gone. So where are they getting their funding? They need help, and we should be there for them, because at the end of the day, that's the important thing, to reach out.
Yeah, and I think just to echo that in this current COVID situation, all of these charities, I mean, my charity, my Nystagmus Network, we're struggling for cash, and it does have a massive knock-on effect. And again, when all of this is over, it's really important that local optical committees, local CET providers, reach out to their local sight loss charities, use their training rooms, put money into those services, because rather than putting money into hotels and conference centres, you've got a local sight loss charity that needs effectively business and needs your money, to help them sustain. Because if they all go, where's blind people going to go at the end of the day for help and support? So I think that, everyone, eyecare professionals could do a lot more in that space as well to help the sight loss economy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's something that we're probably not aware of or don't really consider, is that there is this whole sort of microeconomy within those charities that do need funding. They do need business essentially, and they need donations. They need people to be interacting with them, to be able to keep those support going. Really, we did an event last year at the Queen Elizabeth College in Birmingham, which is disabled college, and they're linked up with Focus Birmingham, who provide low vision aids for people in the Birmingham area. My nan had wet AMD, so she had quite severe sight loss towards the end of her years, but she had so much help and support from Focus. They were fantastic with her in terms of low vision aids and just general support and help. It was fantastic. So these charities do such amazing work. They do need to be supported by the profession, certainly by the profession, definitely.
And I think the other thing to add to that is like leaflets as well. So, you know, when patients are sat in the waiting room just waiting for the clinician, you know, have leaflets in your practice of services as well, so that patients can actually have a look at the leaflets and see what services are available to them, whether it's the mum, the dad, the family member that's sat there, you know, wondering what help my mum or dad can get, then, you know, the leaflets need to be there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's an important thing to remember as well, is that when you're considering a low vision patient, it's not just the patient's life who's going to be affected. They have a support network, they have family who maybe look after them, care for them, whether they're younger or older. So that whole net support system needs to be aware, needs to be understanding of the situation of what their family member is actually going through with their sight loss and how to support them. I
think, Stuart, the thing is that we need to think more sort of openly and think about eye health, right? People think of opticians as people that, you know, test your eyes and give you glasses, give you expensive glasses, and that's what it's all about. And actually, eye health should be the prime sort of feature of what we do, you know. And if you have a person that comes in for the diabetes, you know, has a test for diabetes and comes in every 12 months, then the person coming with them also should be flagged up and say, okay, you know, how about you as a family member? Similar with glaucoma, because we're not really, you know, that, yes, we see these people, but equally, we should be thinking a little bit more, you know, sort of openly about those sorts of things. If we can project eye health more, I think we stand a better chance all round. And also, people with low vision actually think that they don't need to go back to the optician. They've got low vision, they don't need to go back. And actually, if you did a talk at the charity to the members, they might realise that they do need to go back for the eye examination with the optometrist, because, you know, they may have another condition happening. It may be there's early signs of diabetes on top of whatever they've got. And that's a message that we really need to push forward to people, because they just think, oh, that's it, I've got low vision, I've been referred to the ophthalmologist, he said I've got glaucoma, she said I've got AMD, that's it, I don't need to go back. And that's a really important message that we need to engage with. Also, you know, if that person comes back to you, maybe there isn't anything that can be done with the vision as such, but there's, you can tell them about gene therapy that's happening, you know, advances that are going on. You can tell them about some new tech that's going on, or a new service that's opened. All these things are important, and touch it's basically touch points where you can keep them engaged and supported, and they feel that actually, just because I can't see, they're not looking after me. It has to be a holistic approach, really, and you have to give people a chance to come back, but also encourage them. They shouldn't feel like, oh, that's it, I'm not going to go back, because actually they're not going to get any business out of me, so why should I go back?
And also, we want you know, what about the cool sunglasses, you know? We don't all want frumpy sunglasses as well. We want decent sunglasses. So tell us about those as well. Tell us about the tints that you can offer us.
Definitely.
And, you know, and don't necessarily just think that a low vision patient isn't going to spend money in your practice as well, because people will spend money. I mean, in Germany, you know, they have low vision aids, video magnifiers all in the window. You know, they have magnifiers in the window. Be loud and proud about it. Sometimes it seems that I've spoken to a few optometrists that may have maybe a few magnifiers in the drawer or a few leaflets in the drawer. Why are they in the drawer? Why are we hiding blindness? You know, we don't need to hide it. It's the reality of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you're not selling those low vision aids yourself, if you can at least speak to the patient, and if they can source them through a charity, then let them come back to you, and you can show them how to use it. You can support them in getting the best out of it as well.
Exactly.
But again, another thing that's often overlooked with low vision is the importance of refraction, and the need to actually have the best available vision that they can have to get the best out of whatever low vision aid they're using. So that can often be, you know, overlooked in that sense as well.
I think resources is an important thing, as you say, generally, and the roadshow is accompanied by a resource pack that's available from the website, Visualize Training Consultancy. And that resource pack, really, what we try to do with that is try and sort of say to people, how would this work? You know, it's all well and good saying, look at the local charity, look at the national charity. So it's all been put together in one pack. And the idea is that you can fill out your local eye clinic liaison officer, your local sight loss charity, and your local sensory, you know, social services lead. Okay, and then all the sight loss charities, national and local, national and the link, and also the condition-specific charities. So it's all in one pack, and it's easy to use, and it's a good reference guide sort of thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think to have one point of contact where you can recommend someone to go, and then they can sort of follow on from that is a nice and simple way to get the message out there, isn't it? As well, if you give someone a list of phone numbers and a list of websites to click on, they might click on some but not others, but if you give them that one central point of information that they can then sort of cascade through, that can definitely be helpful.
And I think the other thing to add is that we're not expecting practitioners to, it doesn't have to take loads of your time. We don't expect you all to be experts in low vision. What we do expect is that people just refer. I mean, pick up the phone and just ring the local charity and just say, I've got Mr. Smith and he has glaucoma. He's struggling. Can you help him? That's going to take 2 minutes of your time. So for all the people out there that are sort of thinking, actually, I don't have time to do that, it doesn't take much time. And if you want to delegate that role to the receptionist, I mean, they can do that, or the optical assistant, The main thing is that the patient gets help and support. Yeah,
definitely.
There's a website, Stuart, which is www.siteadvicefaq, siteadvicefaq.org.uk, and that's advice that basically it answers questions about living with sight loss, and especially with the COVID situation at the moment. So hopefully that might help as well.
Yeah, definitely. What we'll do is I'll get a list of websites and stuff off you guys, and I'll put them all in the video as well, and in the comments, so people can access those as well, because it is really useful information for people to have. And obviously with the packs that you guys do as well, that's something that every practice should have access to. Definitely. So Dan, thinking about technology, obviously we've touched on various sort of, the different technologies out there, but there's a lot of stuff that people have already got access to that they can use, such as a smartphone. So what advice would you give people about that kind of stuff?
So again, most smartphones, if you go on the settings and you go to accessibility, it will, there's lots of things on there. So you can magnify the screen, you can get the phone to talk back to you. So just have a play around with your phones and have a look at the accessibility functions on it, and you'll be amazed at all the stuff that it can actually do. And again, that's just a quick win that you can tell a patient as well. Not just a patient, but I think a colleague as well, because I've had, after meeting about 5,000 professionals in the eye care sector, there's a lot of you guys out there that also don't see so well yourselves. And I think just to shout out to you guys to be loud and proud and tell your employers that you can't see very well also, because don't sit there in silence and think that you have to struggle on when the employer has to make adjustments for you. And I think that's really important to flag up, that we talk about low vision patients, but you've also got low vision staff. And I think to recognise that and to make sure that the adjustments are in place for the staff as well in the profession.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that we'd expect for any disability, isn't it, really? We'd always expect those reasonable adjustments to be made. But I think with some disabilities, it's easier for an employer to recognise that person has that certain disability because it is a more physical, there's more physical signs presented. Whereas if you've got a visual field loss, or if you've got reduced visual acuity, it's hard for your employer to know that that's an issue unless you tell them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a hidden disability. You're right, Stuart.
Yeah,
definitely. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about, Dan, is your best friend Zodiac. So because he gets quite a lot of attention, doesn't he, whenever you take him out and about on the road shows and stuff. So how long has Zodiac been with you?
Yeah, so I've had Zodiac, my guide dog, for 2 years now, and he just really changed my life in terms of my speed is probably quadrupled. I'm a lot quicker. We don't take any hostages. And, it's amazing how I don't have to worry about bumping into a lamppost. I mean, when you bump into so many lampposts, you realise that you can't see very well. You need a cane or a dog, And it just allowed me to just have a bit more freedom and not need to worry about bumping into things or bumping into people. And before that, I didn't use a cane or a dog. And when I was walking around, I used to, do the dance with people when they move left and then you move left and all this type of stuff. And if you've ever come across that situation, when people do that, you probably never thought that actually maybe they don't see very well. But I think a lot of people, when they move left and you move left, that's what I used to do all the time, because, trying to avoid people maybe, and then looking down at the floor a lot more because, you're not seeing properly. And to other people, they probably just think, oh, you're dodgy or you're a bit odd. but actually you recognise that some people are out there that also don't use anything and that have a hidden disability and they don't see very well. But in terms of having a guide dog, it's really changed my life. It's made me a lot quicker, and just he's amazing, just an amazing animal. Yeah,
definitely. And was it quite an easy process to adapt to using a guide dog? Did it take a lot of time to understand how to tell the dog what to do, or how does it actually, from the point that you received the dog, what's the process?
Yeah, so I had to wait about 2 years to get one. They match you up based on your lifestyle. So if you're traveling all around the country, for example, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. If you're traveling all around the country, for example, they need a dog that can deal with that amount of work.
Right. Okay.
They match you up based on your speed, so how quick you walk. And so if you're just going from A to B, the shop to home, then obviously you need a dog that can just do that. Mm-hmm. I live in Cardiff currently, but my dog has come from London because I work across the UK, and the dog can do the underground in London.
Okay.
So I had to have a dog that come from London so it could do the escalators on the underground. Wow. And so it's a very quite a full-on process in terms of what they do behind the scenes to match people with the dog. And then then we have 10 days training with the dog to understand the commands, understand sort of general dog etiquette, like grooming and communicating with the dog to tell the dog left or right. What will happen is the dog will go, it will navigate all the people, it will then sit at the curb.
Yeah.
And you have to decide whether it's safe to cross the road or not. A lot of people think that the dog is going to tell you when to cross the road, but you have to decide that by using your residual vision, by using your hearing, or by asking someone in the public, or by pressing the button on the crossing.
Yeah.
So, and then it will just navigate all the people and just take that headache from you to try and navigate obstacles and that type of thing. And then you can just sort of flow gently,
Yeah. It's interesting to understand that they have to get a dog that can adapt to your lifestyle. And like I say, having to get a dog from London that's already trained to use escalators and stuff like that. I think a lot of us just feel like it's almost like a one size fits all with a guide dog. But
yeah, no, definitely. And also you can choose the gender, the color of the dog as well. So for example, I wanted a black dog because I wear a lot of suits.
Yeah.
I didn't want hair on my suits and that type of stuff. So, but then other people might not be bothered, So there's a lot that goes into the planning of actually getting matched with a dog. That's why it sometimes takes a bit longer. But equally, they're a charity as well that struggles. There's only 5,000 guide dogs in the UK that are in service.
Yeah, Dan, I was just going to ask you, how much is it to train a guide dog over its lifetime?
Yeah, so it costs about £50,000 for training, so from birth to death, effectively.
Yeah.
To have a guide dog. And also the other thing is that we are protected under the Equality Act. So where organisations or practices have a no dog policy, that means that you have to make a reasonable adjustment to allow assistance dogs in. And I have heard stories of opticians that have refused guide dogs. So it's just to make you aware that actually that is illegal, and it's actually disability discrimination, and you are liable to be sued if you do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've worked in a practice where there was a couple who used to train guide dog puppies. They used to sort of foster them. I think they go through like a breaking in process, don't they, just to get used to people. But they were always welcome in practice when I was in. I couldn't wait for them to come over so I could have a little stroke. So yeah.
And I think and just touching upon the stroking. So like when the harness is on, the dog knows that it's working.
Yeah.
When the harness is off, the dog sort of knows that it's not working. And it's just really common etiquette really to ask the owner, is it okay to stroke the dog, rather than assume it's okay to stroke the dog, because I get a lot of people that will just come up and stroke the dog and they don't communicate with you at all, and they walk off. So I call them the sneaky strokers, because it's like they perceive that you can't see anything at all. So they have this little cheeky stroke and then go about their business. So
Yeah, definitely.
So just ask. The main thing is ask, and then if you don't ask, you don't know, and to assume makes an ass out of me and you.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we love Zodiac. It's great to see him out and about all the optical conferences and stuff like that.
I mean, Zodiac Stuart is the real star of the show. He's an amazing, person in that scenario in the team, because he connects with so many different people, and he's naughty. He can be naughty. He's done naughty things on the roadshow. We're talking or whatever, and he'll sneak under the curtain. People are asking, you're sort of, you're trying to get people's attention. And you're wondering what the hell's going on. Somebody's laughing at you when you're so super serious. And he's Zodiac.
And he seems to get more strokes than I do, which is a bit unfair.
Wow. Tough competition, isn't it, really? So what's the plans for you guys coming up then? What's on the agenda for 2020?
So for 2020, the year of vision and the year of COVID, it looks like. So we're going to do a webinar in the next month called COVID Eyes.
Okay.
Which is going to be by a consultant ophthalmologist, talking about what support patients need to receive in this situation. We also plan to do a See and Beyond the Eyes webinar, just to make people, to make the profession more aware of visual impairment.
Yeah.
And then we hopefully intend to be back on the road, doing some other See and Beyond the Eyes sessions once all of this is over. But again, the slight issue that we have is that we don't have funding effectively. So if there's anyone out there that can fund us or get us back on the road, that would also be appreciated. Yeah,
definitely. So if any suppliers out there or anyone else wants to support the guys, then it's definitely a worthwhile thing to do. Because the shows are really well attended, aren't they? And we always hear a lot of positive feedback from the people at our shows about your events as well, Dan. It's always funny when we do sort of low vision workshops and people mention that they've been to one of yours, and they go, oh, I shouldn't mention the competition, should I? And I'm like, it's not like we're not in competition with each other. We know each other, we're friendly, it's all good, and whatever we can do to support each other, we always try and do, don't we? So we never sort of see
Optics is a small profession anyway.
Yeah,
definitely. People know each other quite well, so I think that in that sense you can't. Yeah. That's just the lay of the land, and that's the way it is.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's all we really do. We just do visual impairment, don't we? Really. So.
Yeah. But like I say, the feedback we've had. I mean, I've sat in a couple of sessions. I found it really thought-provoking and interesting. And it certainly gave me things to take away into practice and information that I can speak to low vision patients about. And it's also given me a lot of talking points, so when I'm doing low vision lectures, I refer back to some of the stuff that you've recommended, and I always recommend that people go to your website and check out the list of links and support groups on there. So there's definitely been a lot that professionals can gain from attending one of your workshops. So they definitely are highly recommended. And like I say, a lot of the feedback we get is that everyone I've spoke to that's been on to one of your courses has always enjoyed it and found it, very worthwhile. So no, you're doing a great job. So yeah, it's great to have you.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, we're all learning, aren't we? We're all every CET workshop any of us does, we're all learning. Something new will come up, something we haven't come across. And so for us, that's the joy of being a CET facilitator. Certainly for me, that you're learning all the time, and that has to continue.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why it's fun, and that's why we do it.
Yeah, definitely.
And we try also to get patients on at our sessions, and also sight loss professionals, so that people can start interacting with individuals and building emotional connections, which I think is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, it's not just the patient; it's the whole support network. And it is that communication piece that's the most important thing in all of this, isn't it? Really, that's one thing we have to take away from it all. So,
especially in the year of vision as well. I think it's about the sight loss sector and the eye care sector in my mind, are miles apart. And I think it's about time we work better together for the ultimate benefit. And I think whilst it will benefit your patients, it will also benefit your business as well.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah, definitely. And like I say, unfortunately, in optics, in practice, we rely on the sale of specs, don't we? Because the sight tests, we can't rely on sight tests and MEX appointments. We wouldn't be able to afford to stay open. So, anything you can do to provide a service for someone that keeps them coming back in, and then that's good PR. They'll bring their family in, their friends in, and it just builds your business
Yeah.
that way. So you've got to look.
And also,
big.
you know, some of these video magnifiers are like £2,000-3,000. I mean, you know, in my mind, there's a massive business trick miss there as well. You know, if you're business savvy, then get selling some of this kit as well. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we get hung up with prices and things like that. It's about building relationships. That's the key driver, because that builds loyalty, and then, you know, therein lies the heart of any good business. You know, if people trust you with the information, with the support, then that hopefully will keep them locked into your practice.
Yeah, definitely. And we want to build the kind of reputation for optics and optical professionals as being trustworthy, as being people who are healthcare providers rather than just retailers. So delving into that kind of stuff will make a big difference, definitely. So I think we've literally just hit the time limit for today. So thank you both for coming on. It's been really interesting talking to you both. Like I say, the work that you're both doing is fantastic. I think, Dan, you're an inspiration. So just keep up the good work, really.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I say, I'll put some links in the video and stuff like that, so I'll get all the websites up and everything. But if you haven't been to a Seen Beyond the Eyes roadshow, then it's definitely something you should have a look into, because it is.
Thanks for inviting us, Stuart.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on. And thanks for everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.